Hi, this is Kerry Artek with Wicked Stocks, bringing you the daily Apple report for Monday, October 31st, 2022. This is the first edition of the daily Apple report and will continue through the month of November each and every trading day. So please tune into the Wicked Stocks channel to watch the daily Apple report. We're continuing the daily Tesla report, FYI. So if you haven't seen that, that's also been uploaded for Monday, October 31st. By the way, happy Halloween. And so this is the first edition of the Daily Apple Report. And because that is the case, I'm going to sort of do some broad brushstroke view here. This is a daily chart. Most of these are daily charts. I have some weekly charts. This is a daily chart of Apple. You see the big rally on Friday, approaching a descending two-thirds speed line. I use speed line analysis a lot for trend identification. I also use channel structures. And this speed line is sort of our ceiling. Really, not only for the week itself, I have it as a mere weekly resistance. You might weigh that 4 stars multi-week. It might contain buying, into later November. We could fall off from here in a meaningful way. It is a pivot point, not only for the week, but really into later November, because if we were to close today above 158.02, I then have the 179.53 formation as a 2 to 3 week objective. 179.53 is a pretty classic channel top, as you can see, based on the lows from June and October, and it actually closes in as we move into later year, this all-time high from January at 182.94. So this is a big zone up here, begins at 179.53. It is actually 179.53 as far as I'm concerned, because if we were to close above 179.53, for instance, I do think that this high at 182.94 is likely to then be violated possibly the very next day. So closing above 158.02, 2 to 3 week objective up to 179.53. Until then, we can quite easily this week fall back to 142.80. There's a lot going on the 140s. I'm going to show a little bit of that here in a moment. But 142.80 is a rising two-thirds speed line. It's the softest angle. We've got channel tops coming up. We've got Fibonacci levels on the way down, so forth and so on. But in terms of a soft angle line study that's trend defining, 142.80 is it. We could fill this wedge out for a better part of the week, maybe through the entire week. But closing outside of this wedge, above 158.02, buy signal into later November. Closing below 142.80, sell signal into later November. In fact, if we were to close below 142.80, I can show you here, I then have the mid-120s as I think a realistic 2 to 3 week downside objective. 124.92 is a descending channel bottom on the daily chart. And I'm going to show also on the weekly chart, where are you? Here. How we have a range of support, long-term significant support between 116.54 and 124.80. This is a weekly bar chart, and it is this is a rising two-thirds speed line projected off the March 2020 COVID low of 53.15. Significant pullback low, as you're well aware, and you can use this for trend identification because off of this low we had just a sort of this amazing sustained rally, especially in the Q and the SPY. Anyway, so this is the big picture support for Apple. I don't expect to see it unless we close today, for instance, below 142.80. And that's not going to happen. But as we move through the later part of the week, we may well settle below 142.80. And if so, either that's a downward pivot point into later November, expecting this zone of support here in the lower right, 116.54 to 124.80. So that kind of covers the big picture. Let's talk about, I'm not going to cover the upside anymore. Well, I will say at least we've got 156.39. This is a steeply rising channel top that we pushed through on Friday, as you can see. It's climbing, convergence of 158.02 over the next couple of days. We settled right at it. So, it's just a minor point. I've got 152.34 as an intraday support level, and I think I've got that labeled here. Bear with me here for just a second. Here we are. 152.34 is the high settlement price. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That would have been Tuesday's high. We had a pullback high. We fell back Thursday, and we just sort of reversed hard on Friday. 152.34 on the way down can contain intraday selling. If we break 152.34, 146.66 in reach. 146.66, where are you? I'm quite sure we have it labeled. Yes, a new steeply rising channel bottom on the daily chart. I'm just giving it its session containment. I think it can contain daily selling pressures if tested. But once again, even if we close below 146.66, and I think that that is a long shot today, but if we did, the 142.80 speed line is then tomorrow's test. 142.80, able to contain weekly selling pressures. We can rally off from here back to the 158.02 speed line. Closing below 142.80, once again, we have bearish continuation into later November, expecting then 116.54 to 124.80. Upside today, if we push through the 158.02 speed line, and we may, 164.26 is likely, where we can place a daily high. And if we close above 164.26, 173.87 is then expected within just another day or two. I don't know if this thing is going to keep this sort of hyperbolic, stratospheric, vertical move or not. If we close above 158.02 today, we could reach, with this kind of volatility, 179.53 inside of 2 weeks. I don't expect to see that this week by any means. But if we close above 158.02, 2 to 3 week target, 179.53, and we'll be playing it that way as we move into later November on the daily Apple report. I've got weekly charts in here. Same line studies, descending 2/3 speed line is at 156.97 rather on the weekly chart. The high of the low is 144.52. That's where I say there's a lot going on in the 140s in terms of buyable support. But I'm going to be following that 142.80 speed line I showed a moment ago as our trend defining pivot point into later November. 144.52 you can see is the high of the low. That was roughly last week's low area as well. So you can see the validity of it. And that 142.80 rising speed line will be converging with this area over the next couple of days. If we close below 142.80 or the week itself below 144.52, which will probably be roughly the same thing, once again we pivot south into later November. No clear sign right now that we're going to pivot south into later November. But, you know, if you're bearish Apple for whatever reason, and I'm not arguing with that, I'm just saying if you are, this is your zone. 158.02 is your sell zone, your going short zone, or maybe you're long right now and you're antsy to consider liquidating that long position. This is the area, because if we close above it, there's another 20 points higher up to 179.53 within 2 to 3 weeks. Until then, holding below 158.02, we can quite easily collapse back into the lower 140s. Once again, 143.59 is the high of the low here on the daily chart. Like I say, lots going on in the lower 140s. 142.80, though, is in reach this week below 158.02, and you could make a case that below 158.02, where can I show you again? Where is it? Yes, below 158.02, there is a case to be made for a good high, perhaps through November. Like I said at the very beginning of this video, you could call this a 4-star resistance, able to contain buying into later November, and from here we can collapse back perhaps below 142.80, and you never know, by the end of November, might we be testing the mid-120s below 158.02. So I'm going to put that out there as an idea. If you're looking to go short Apple, this is the area. If we close above 158.02, in my opinion, no good reason to be short Apple as we continue into later November, because this 179.53 channel top becomes our next 2 to 3 week objective. Trying to think if there's anything else that needs to be said. I'm going to show you, I'm going to close out the last minute or two with this. It's just worth showing the triple Q. NASDAQ 100 ETF, you know, Apple's a big part of this index. And this index has yet to show a meaningful long-term buy signal into later year. It has yet to even approach resistance. 292.21, rising 2/3 speed line off that March 2020 COVID low. This area held nicely. I do a daily triple Q report on the Wicked Stocks premium side of our website. And I was telling subscribers back in early summer that this was your buy zone. And it held nicely. We rallied into August, and then we closed below this rising 2/3 speed line about a month and a half ago, and it is now 292. 292.21. And as it turns out, the new descending 1/3 speed line, based in part on the low that was put out 3 weeks ago, is 298.97. I'll be showing these levels to you as we continue into later November on a weekly basis. This is our ceiling in the triple Q. And if the triple Q can close above this 292.21 to 98.97 area at the end of a week, then we actually indeed have a good long-term low for the triple Q, with bullish continuation then expected into the mid 300s, 353.76 over the following 2 to 3 to 5 months. And I'll also show you the SPY. The SPY is worth mentioning. Apple's a part of the S&P 500. The SPY settled at its descending 1/3 speed line. You know, the SPY didn't fall as much, obviously, as the Q did. The S&P 500 did not fall as much as the NASDAQ 100 did off of those highs from November and January of last year, and so, or January of this year. And so the SPY is actually is actually testing its trend-defining 1/3 speed line, whereas the triple Q has yet to even approach it. So if the SPY can close this week Friday above 387.18, then we have a meaningful buy signal through the rest of the year and well into Q1, whereby I would anticipate 433.51 to 444.42. And once again, we do a daily SPY report every single day. We do SPY analysis and Q analysis on wickedstocks.com, our premium side of our analysis. So I think that pretty much rounds it out. We'll be doing the Daily Apple Report through the month of November. Please click like and subscribe each and every time you watch this. And we'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday, with the Daily Apple Report. You have a great day.